This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and here's an exciting one. This is the Lenovo Yoga 910. We've reviewed every single generation of Yoga since they invented the 360-degree hinge, and then some newer ones that have this beautiful watch band hinge. But this is definitely the best Yoga so far. Previously, the finishes on the aluminum bodies sometimes looked a little bit, cheesy. Sorry to say, but they did. And they had a little bit of flex on the body panels. And HP with their Spectre X360 was really showing them up in terms of build quality and looks. And that's not the case anymore. This is a really gorgeous looking 360-degree convertible, and there's some nifty things about it. Like, it has the footprint of the 13.3-inch laptop it always was, but now you have a 13.9-inch display, so bigger is always better if it doesn't take up more space. Call it 14 inches really, right? Latest Intel Kaby Lake CPUs inside, and a appropriate price point, shall we say, for what you get here. And we're going to look at it now. Well, flat out, pun intended, this is one of the nicer 360-degree convertibles that you can get, and it's priced appropriately. It's $1149 for the configuration we have. You get an Intel Core i7 dual-core, 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gig SSD, and Intel HD 620 graphics, no matter what you do. If you want to move up to a 4K display, 16 gigs of RAM, and a 512 gig SSD, you're looking at $1,500. Of course, Black Friday is coming up. It's holiday season. I'm sure we'll see some discounts on it. And for that, what do you get? A CNC aluminum chassis. And again, much improved looks here. It doesn't look a little bit cheeseball. There's no flex here. This is firm. This is rigid. Yes, all good. You get the very attractive watch band hinge. I think that's been very popular with folks. And it's also pretty stiff, too. So, if you tap on it, it's going to boing, boing, boing a little bit, as all convertibles do, but it's actually, relatively speaking, a bit stiffer than some conventional hinge designs. You also get this new near bezel-less display, the thing that Dell with their XPS started making a real popular thing. Only 5 millimeters of bezel on the sides and the top. Notice the big area on the bottom here. You can't get away with that, in part because it has to match the size of the base, and the base has to have room for all the internals, including a bigger battery, yay. And also, this is where the chin cam is. The webcam is on the bottom, just like the Dell XPS 13 and 15. So be prepared to share your nostril hairs with those you're friendly with. There's no room for a Windows IR Hello camera above the display, and really the bottom of the display is not a good location for that. So instead we get a fingerprint scanner here, good old-fashioned fingerprint scanner. Well, it's not really old-fashioned. It's the nice modern square kind you rest your finger on that works pretty instantly, and that works with Windows Hello. When we're looking at the keyboard here, you can see that there have been some revisions, and that's a good thing. Lenovo used to, with the Yogas, put a column over here where they had like the page up, page down arrow keys, and it kind of drove many touch typists crazy. So they've done away with that, more conventional. The only complaint is the shift key. The right shift key is still truncated, so it's going to take some getting used to because, well, we expect it to be as wide as the left shift key, Key travel on this is pretty good. It's typical low travel, about 1.3 millimeters, but the tactile feel on this is excellent, and it's not a noisy keyboard at all. It's backlit. I like it. And as usual with ThinkPad and Yogas, you can control it by hitting FN and the space bar right there to turn the backlighting on and off. The trackpad. They made the trackpad a bit bigger too. This seems to be the year of everybody making trackpads huge. This one is not huge. It's kind of an appropriate but large size. It's a wonderful trackpad. It's Synaptics trackpad, and there's a whole control panel tab devoted to all the Synaptics settings. I just started using it. I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm using a Mac. There's a lot of Windows laptops that can come close these days, but this one really is just responsive. It's like one-to-one with your brain kind of feeling, multi-touch gestures, the usual stuff. It's very good. And the click is very high quality. Some of them feel like it's kind of like a sheet of metal sprawling on one spring. This feels just nice and even and damped everywhere, even if you click up near the top over here. Good stuff, Lenovo. Good stuff. In terms of performance, this is an Ultrabook. That means dual-core 15-watt CPU. Is not a quad-core gaming powerhouse, obviously, but fast enough for most people's tasks, including casual video editing for 1080p video. Certainly a lot of Photoshop work, compiling some code, unless you've got millions and millions of lines of code in your program. It's good for all those things. You actually get Core i7-7500U here. Right now, they're not offering a Core i5 even, which is interesting, but hey, nobody minds a Core i7. And DDR4 RAM, which is unusual. Usually we see DDR3 low power RAM, so it uses more power potentially, but it is faster, and you get a PCIe M2 SSD, which is upgradable if you want to upgrade it yourself afterwards. You can get that all the way up to a terabyte, by the way. So our PC Mark score here is quite good for an Ultrabook, as you can see. In fact, all the benchmark scores are looking good, Geekbench also. And if you want to see the SSD speed, here's the typical thing we see for the manufacturer installed kind of PCIe NVMe SSDs, which means you get really fast read times and okay, but not like wow write times. If you want to upgrade to a faster SSD, you could, but I think this is going to suit most people just fine. This is a touch screen here, and it is glossy, so you're going to have some reflections, but it's not too bad in terms of reflections. This does not support an active pen of any kind, so if you're looking for something that uses an active pen for note-taking or artwork, this is not your laptop. Now, besides the very narrow bezels on the display, this is a nice display, and I particularly like having the 13.9-inch display instead of the usual 13.3. You do feel the difference. Everything's just a little bit bigger and easier to see, which is kind of nice. Yet the footprint is no bigger than competing 13.3-inch Ultrabooks. That's what happens when you reduce those bezels. 95% of sRGB is represented for color gamut, 71% of Adobe RGB, which is about typical for this price segment here, and it's competitive with the HP Spectre X360, also running Kaby Lake. 2.1 gamma, 2.2 is perfect, that's pretty close, that's fine. 308 nits of brightness, so it's a bright display. 0.37 black levels, that's pretty good. Not stellar, but pretty decent, so that works out to a contrast ratio of 840:1, and believe me, you'll notice that when you're watching videos and stuff, things look a little sharper thanks to that contrast, which is a bit better than our average 600 to 660:1 that we see on a lot of laptops in this price range. White point, hardware white point is 7400 degrees Kelvin, which is, as ever with laptops, too high. The ideal would be about 6600 degrees Kelvin, but with calibration, it cleans up nicely, and this is good enough for serious photo work. T16 Apple 13-inch MacBook Pro, the base model, the $1499 model that doesn't have the new touch bars. All right, that's not just an inception moment here as you're watching me in a video. That's so you can hear the speakers, which are pretty decent. These are JBL speakers that fire down from the bottom corners, front corners over here. They're not, we'll have a smackdown at the HP Spectre X360. We'll talk about how it compares to those particular speakers, but they're certainly adequate. They don't distort at high volumes. They have pretty good volume, certainly, not much bass, which is typical of Ultrabooks. And so you get an idea of the footprint compared to the HP Spectre X360, which is 13.3-inch Ultrabook. You can see it's just going to be a little bit longer here, but compared to the old Yoga, actually, it's really not considerably larger there. The sides now have this kind of nice polished aluminum look on, as like the black plasticky kind of on the side going on, again, a little bit like the Spectre X360. 2 USB-C ports, one of which is used for charging over here. These are USB-C 3.0, which means they're just the same speed as a USB 3.0 standard A port. No Thunderbolt 3 here. Boo-hoo, there's a little ding there. I mean, it's nice to have USB-C at all, but gee, I'd like to have seen at least Gen 2 speed or Thunderbolt 3. And on the other side, we have a USB-A port 3.0, and that can support charging, so you can charge your smartphone. So you don't have to run out and immediately buy adapters. At least you get one legacy port right there. And there's our headphone/mic jack. No SD card slot. Again, 2016 is the year where laptops persecute the ever-popular SD cards. So you're going to have to use an SD card reader with this if you need that. And if you need display out, you're going to have to use, once again, those USB-C ports, because there's no HDMI in here, there's no mini display port, none of that stuff. So you're going to need some dongle adapters to connect this to your monitor. So on the underside of the laptop, you can see where the JBL speakers are right here. And if you want to remove the bottom cover, Torx T5 screws all around the edges. None are hidden. Now, when you go to take the lid off, it's pretty, or the bottom cover, really, not so much the lid. When you go to take that off, it's pretty easy. There aren't any really annoying, tenacious edge plastic clips. But there's one little squeezy clip in the center. So at first you're going to think, oh my God, there's a hidden screw in the middle, which obviously there can't be. This is a solid sheet of aluminum here, so don't worry, just lift and it'll pop up. When you do look inside, you'll see that RAM is soldered on board, which is typical for Ultrabooks. The M2 SSD slot, compatible with SATA and PCIe drives, is there, standard 2280 height, and you have your socketed wireless card as well. So pretty typical internals, and you'll notice that half of it's taken up by the battery. Big 78 watt-hour battery in there, which is very large for an Ultrabook of this size. And the charger is the same one that Lenovo always includes. I'd like a little bit more cord here, but you know, it's a 45 watt. Fairly portable at least. Prongs don't fold down kind of charger. So yeah, you got about 6 feet of reach with the cord there. So 78 watt hour battery, that should mean stellar battery life, right? Well, it does do pretty well. And again, we have the 1080p model here. If you get the 4K, you'll probably lose about 2 hours of battery life runtime on a charge there. But for our 1080p model, we average about 8 to 8.5 hours of mixed productivity use. Now, if you're just doing a streaming video test, because Intel CPUs and chipsets are so optimized for that, you'll get longer. But that's not really a very realistic test anymore, to just loop a video forever. So I'm talking about using some Word, some Excel, a little Photoshop, and streaming some videos, and doing email and social networking. Realistic use with brightness set to 40%. We average 8 to 8.5 hours or so, which falls a little bit under the Spectre X360, but still a quite good showing. So how about heat and noise? We don't expect Ultrabooks to be either particularly hot or loud. There's a toasty spot right around over here, nothing alarming. Honestly, the fans on this, you won't hear them much when it's unplugged, even if you're doing moderately demanding things. But occasionally you hear, woo, we're up, and it does have 2 fans, which is interesting. But if you use it with it plugged into AC, you're going to hear the fan an awful lot. I don't know why that is, but it is kind of annoying, and I do wonder if maybe Lenovo is going to come out with a BIOS update to address that. So that's the Lenovo Yoga 910 and all of its watch band goodness. Again, really nice build quality here, very good looking machine. Good internals too. We have Intel Core i7 KB Lake inside and 2 display options. Obviously we have the 1080p here, but you can get this with 4K too if you want. It might be a little bit overkill unless you're doing a lot of serious Photoshop or video and editing work on this. So to go for 4K, but it's there in case you want it. Anyway, definitely a nice laptop, a bit port constrained. We would like to have seen Thunderbolt 3, but still, all in all, for the price, it's darn nice. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you liked it.